All right. So I was talking to somebody over the weekend. We had some family over, and I was talking to one of my cousins, and we were talking about what it's going to take to actually get healthy, and stay healthy and do that whole thing. And we're going to have to kind of rethink the way we run our lives, the way we do everything, if we really want to be there. One of the things I've been talking about is if we want to get everybody healthier, one of the things we're going to have to look at is actually getting a hold of our 20 to 30-year-old girls, women, and getting them cleaned up. Not just detoxing their body from all the diet drinks and alcohol and all the processed foods and all that trash, but we're gonna have to exercise them so that they can get functionally fit so they can actually carry babies. We're gonna have to start working on their mental function, things like that. We have not only the worst health care, like getting sick and stuff like that, we have the worst mental health care in the world as well. Like we are legitimately at the bottom of every type of healthcare we can. And the only way that we're going to actually get around that, we're not going to find some new drug. We're not going to find some new surgery. We're not going to find some new, you know, tonic or tincture that's going to fix everybody. What we're going to have to start to do is start to recognize we have to change our entire mindset. We've got to change what we think about healthcare. We've got to change about what we think about self-care. We're going to have to change the way that, because the thing I talked to, my biggest job, actually the thing that I find the most fun, and actually kind of the whole reason I feel like I'm what I do is I try to fit all the things in people's lives. It's like, hey, you got to change your diet. Here's how we're going to do it. Have you eaten this food? Have you eaten this food? Like walking people through it. Then we're just like, hey, how are you doing your sleep? Like, have you set a wake time? Have you set a bedtime? Are you sleeping like this? Are you doing these things? And, that's the thing that, again, I find the most fun, that I think people actually need, is me to kind of walk them through all of the things. But if we want to be healthy, we're going to have to start looking at all the different pillars. We're going to have to start looking at them and deciding, what is it that I have to do to now be healthy? Because we're going to have to give some stuff up. We're going to have to move some stuff around. We're going to have to reprioritize things. And so that's the thing that I think we should all start to sit back and kind of be like, all right, hold on. Obviously I got to pay for the house and this and that. Maybe we downsize the house. Maybe we, downsize the cars. And I realize, I live in Frisco, so I realize how crazy that sounds to everybody, but maybe that's the thing we got to do. Reprioritize all the things on our list and then be like, okay, what can I do to wake up a little bit later, go to bed a little bit earlier? What can I do to, black out the room? What can I do to eat a little cleaner? What can I do to start exercising? Like how do you start integrating these things into your life? Everybody wants to be healthy. And I think the thing is that, because this is what I find when I talk to people, is that people want to be healthy and they're willing to do some work. They just don't know how to integrate it in their lives. But I think if we kind of took a step back and was like, all right, what's really important? Because you talk to people who have dementia, you talk to people who, have cancer, you talk to people who are, pretty ill, or have family members who are pretty ill, and, mothers of autistic children, things like that. And, all of a sudden it's kind of one of those deals where you're like, yeah, all the things don't matter if you're not healthy. People say that all the time, but that's kind of where it is. And we know, a lot of people know, they know they're on a path to being mentally, physically, emotionally just destroyed health-wise. And they're not doing a whole lot to change the path, and maybe it's because they don't know, and that's great. And that's why people watch the stuff. That's why they're online. But we're going to have to start kind of changing the way we think about stuff and being like, hey, instead of just watching stuff, which is great, like get the information, start taking action, start moving forward on some of these things. Join a class. Like, we've got, like a Vibe 5 class, or a Orange Theory class, or like whatever, like a step class, spin class, something. Go do something like, okay, I'm going to go do this 3 days a week. So it's called, when we do it, we call it tasking. Instead of being like, hey, I need to get in shape. Great. That's a thought. That's not a plan. Like, we've got to start getting plans put together. And the way that I help people do them is with a series called SMART. So basically what you do is you set your plan, you set a way of measuring your progress in the plan, and then you set it that's achievable, that you can actually do, and then you put a timestamp on it. And you're like, all right, so this week or in the next 48 hours, I'm going to do this thing that's going to get me closer to my goal. And we're going to all have to kind of start working towards that thing. We're going to have to start being like, okay, here's what I want. I want more functional movement. I want, I want to lose some fat. I want to, you know, get overall healthier. Okay, well, what are we going to do? If you don't have somebody to help you kind of walk through that framework of, okay, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, uh, you know, come up with a plan on your own. But you've got to come up with a plan that is, like I said, is set in that time frame where you're like, hey, I'm going to do this thing by this time, in this way. Great. Now you have a plan that you take action on, not just I want to be healthier soon, or I don't want to have a heart attack. So we're actually going to have to start changing the way we're thinking about things and put action into them. We're going to have to start actively moving forward on them. These are some of the things that, are going to be really, really beneficial. So, let's say, sleep, like I want to get better sleep. All right. Find a time. This is people don't, it's always like, well, I should go to sleep at this time. No, you should pick a time to wake up. And this is weird, but pick a time to wake up every morning that you can wake up every morning, and then backdate how long you're going to be able to sleep. Because you have to start setting routines. And that's the easiest way to set your routine is, when do I have to get up most days? When you figure out that time, now back up 6 hours and be like, well, this is when I have to be asleep. So back up, 20, 30 minutes that I have to be in bed at this time. One of the other things you can do is okay, if I've got to be in bed at, I'm just picking times, 10 o'clock, I'm going to get off my phone at 9:30 or 9 or, something like that. So I'm not staring at that phone with all those lights, all the frequencies of lights that are keeping us all awake, this type of thing. So actually start setting your goals. Don't just be like, I want to get better sleep. Great. That's a fantastic thing to want, but it doesn't have a goal set to it. So, if you want to start getting healthier, just remember, I've got to do some stuff in your diet. And the first thing you want to do on diet, like if you're going to do this type of stuff, strip out some of the processing. Like everybody tries to take this giant bite out of this huge health apple, and then they don't, they can't chew it up. And so they're like, okay, I'm just going to give up. Small bites, small steps, that type of thing. Strip out some of the processing. This is one of the things that when I work with people, this is what we go through. It's like, okay, like that's why I always ask people, what are your 10 favorite foods? Because I can, like, here's how to make and eat these foods without the trash in them. So that's one step. And then, what am I going to do about my sleep? All right, get off the phone, set a wake time, set a bedtime type of thing. Great. Now just execute that for a couple of weeks. Then we'll start stripping other things out. So these small steps. So if you guys haven't set a bedtime set a wake time instead of bedtime, try doing that. Just sit down and be like, okay, by the end of this week, it's Monday. That's a long time. You should probably be like, by tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to come up with, what I need to do and how I need to do it. So set that first, set the sleep times, and be like, okay, that's what I'm doing for sleep right now. Like maybe you come back to it 2 weeks from now, maybe you come back to it a month from now, maybe you come back to it 3 days from now, but set that thing for your sleep, right? Because you got all these different things you got to function in. Then sit back and be like, okay, I'm going to try to strip out some of the processing in my food. Great. By the end of the week. That one might take you a little bit longer, because you start going through your food and you're like, everything I eat has trash in it. Yeah, it does. So maybe you figure out, hey, when I make this dish, I'm going to start doing X, Y, and Z. Or maybe if you want to be super healthy and be super awesome with this type of stuff, decide that you're going to start stripping out a food that's terrible for you. Like, I'm going to quit eating cereal, which I realize I just gave half of you a panic attack, but think about that one. Like, okay, I'm just going to eliminate this one thing. What am I going to replace it with? Give yourself 5 or 6 options you can replace it with. And it's one of those deals where I've had people be like, I'm going to quit eating cereal. I'm going to start eating bacon and eggs. I'm like, that's a great change for a lot of people, not for everybody, but for a lot of people, bacon and eggs is a much better change than cereal. However, you're going to have to factor in making bacon and eggs, and eating bacon and eggs does not take the same amount of time. It's not as easy as making cereal and eating cereal and then putting the bowl in the sink. So you're going to have to factor in, okay, I've got, I need 7 more minutes, 10 more minutes. I need to do these things. Like, here's how I'm going to walk through that. So again, walk all that through in your head if you don't have somebody to walk it through with you, and try to figure out, okay, here's how I'm going to do this. Pick a meal that really you shouldn't be eating, or pick something like Oreos, right? So if you're like, I like Oreos, cool. Try to find, this is one of my favorite things to do, try to find an Oreo replacement that is just better. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just better, right? So, like, okay, I found one that still has the dyes and this and that, but it doesn't have the sugar in it. Great. You've made a big step forward. Great. Fine. That's fantastic. Like, you don't have to go from 0 to a 10 all at once, cut it out. and we can start kind of walking through it. Apparently, there's no sound on my YouTube. I'll have to figure that out. But those are some of the things that we can start kind of chipping through and see if we can't figure out a way to process those things back through. So if you can start doing these little things, it's going to add up to a lot over time. You don't have to go from, like I said, from a 0 to a 10 overnight. These are the things that working with a coach can kind of walk you through and be like, okay, have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? But those are the things that if we really want to start getting healthy, we're really going to have to start kind of figuring out, what do we do? Like what's the next step? Like, where are we starting? Where are we trying to go? And what are the steps to get from point A to point B? So sit down and kind of figure that out, and then figure out, like, what's one thing I can do, just one thing, and set a time. Be like, okay, I can do, I can figure out the replacement for cereal in 2 or 3 days. I can decide that I'm going to stop using my phone 30 minutes before I go to bed tonight. Great. And if you don't successfully get through it, great. Did you try? Fantastic. Then you can go through and be like, well, I was not able to do it. And here's the fun thing. This is the great thing. If you're like, I couldn't do it because I had fear of missing out, or I couldn't do it because of XYZ. Great. Now you're starting to figure out that you have attachment issues. Maybe you have addiction issues. Maybe you've got stuff that you weren't aware of beforehand that's holding you back. This is where we start going through and be like, do you need to break this thing? Or why are you making the decisions you're making? As we start going through that, that's when you start looking at that. That's when I start looking at the NLP stuff. Like, okay, how do we now fix your psychology so that this is no longer something that's driving you to do X, Y, and Z? There's lots of little things in that, but just kind of walk through and try to figure out, hey, I've got X, I've got Y, I'm trying to get here. What are the small steps I can take? But think about it, like, it has to be achievable. You've got to be able to fit it in your life, and you got to put a timestamp on it. Like, I'm going to do this by tomorrow. I'm going to do this by the end of the week. I'm going to do this by whatever. And, maybe it's one of those things where you're just like, I need help doing this. I'm going to make my list of people who can help me today. Right. So the next 24 hours, I'm going to make a list of the 3, 4, 5, 6 people that I really think can help me. Fantastic. That's a big piece of your goal. There you go. Knock it out. You've made a list of people who can help you. And then once you do that list, then you're like, okay, now I'm going to go through and I'm going to sort through this list and figure out who the 2 best people on my list are. Right. I'm going to give myself 48 hours to do that. Right. So now it's 3 days in, and now you have the 2 best people you can have to work with. Now just start, get with them and see, how you can work with them and get going. You've now made the biggest step you can in your health. If you're going to find somebody who's going to help you walk through this, like, offload that burden of, figuring it out to them. Like, I've spent 20 years working on trying to figure it out for me. So, the easy thing is, like, if you value your time, you hire somebody who's spent the time figuring it out already to help you walk through it. This is what you do with any mentor or any coach. Like, what have you done? You're like, oh, I spent 20 years working on, learning to build the right buildings. All right, well, then I should probably hire you to build the buildings. I've spent 20 years learning how to be the great lawyer. I should probably hire you to be my lawyer. I shouldn't be my own lawyer. Like, that type of a deal. So, but pick your people that you can go through and you can get this stuff done with, and start making the small changes, because, that's really the way all these things happen. I've met so many people who try to make these big changes, and they last maybe 2 or 3 weeks because they bit off way more than they could chew, and they didn't understand how the pieces were going to fit in their life. But if you'll start thinking, okay, I know that I need to do X, Y, and Z. Like, and start with sleep is the easiest one, because people complain about their sleep all the time. Figure out how to get that fit in your life, and then try to figure out how to start stripping some of the processed stuff out of your diet. And these changes will make the biggest impact on you all the way through. Now, the next one I would tell you to do is start working on some gratitude stuff. But those are the ways that are going to be probably the easiest way for you guys to start getting healthy. And no one's going to do this for you. Like, no one can do this for you. That's the thing. It's like, I want to have big arms like you do. And I'm like, great. You're going to have to go to the gym. You're going to have to do the curls. You're going to have to do the work. No one can do it for you because it's your body. So if you want your health or your family's health to get better, you need to start changing the way you're thinking and recognize that this is a thing you've got to do. Like, you can do it all by yourself if you really want to. Like, I'm not trying to say you can't. I've done it, and I haven't even done it all by myself. I spent, God, hundreds of thousands of dollars going to school, learning from neurologists, learning from, some of the best guys in the area, partnering up with people. That's I've learned a lot. It was so funny because I learned so much about how to do work on my female athletes, because I had pregnancy chiropractors in my office teaching me how to do pregnancy work. Because, like, if you want to talk about how the pelvis works in a woman, like if you go through the pregnancy stuff, like you're like, oh, here it is at normal, here it is all the way throughout the pregnancy, here's how it is at the end. You learn so much about it. But that's the thing. Like you have to get with these people and you have to do these things. So, it's been, for me, it's been 20 something years of hardcore all day, every day, dedicated work. And that's how long it took me to figure out how to get where I'm at, for me and my family to get where I'm at. So, hiring a professional to do it is really, really beneficial, but there's a lot of small changes you can make, and the sleep is the easiest one. So figure out when you're going to wake up, figure out your bedtime, put a time limit on that and be like, I'm going to figure this out by the end of the day. I'm going to figure out that, I'm going to do this. Now, here's the thing. Once you figure it out, you're going to look at your calendar and be like, oh, I promised to be here and I promised to be here, so I can't start it yet. All right. When can you start it? Like, well, my calendar's open up, like fit it in, like get started. If you're like, well, I can only do 5 of the 7 days. That's a lot. That's more than half. Like get started on it and you'll figure out how to fit your life into those parameters. So don't let yourself fit into somebody else's schedule or somebody else's life. Fit your life into your schedule. But that's going to be one of those big things, is if you want to get healthy, you're going to have to change the way you think about it. This isn't to go to the doctor and the doctor makes me healthy. This is I do these things. I make myself healthier. I am healthy because of what I've done for me. And if you need to have a guide help you guide through it, like great, hire somebody, hire me, hire a trainer, hire somebody to help guide you through it. You will save substantial time, energy, and money. I guarantee, and headache. I guarantee you, if you hire somebody, and you're going to end up finding that for the most part, you're going to get what you pay for. But, on the other side of that, if you're healthier and you're not sick and you're able to do the things you want to do, it's going to end up saving you money at the long run. A lot of my business owners I work with, it makes them money because they're able to go do their job better. They're able to sell better. They're able to run their company better because they have clarity of mind and they have energy in the whole thing. But that's the thing. If you're thinking that someone's going to come up with a pill or someone's going to come up with a thing that helps you do this thing, that's not how it works. You got to do it. And so, whether you hire somebody or not, remember, change your mindset. Your health is entirely up to you. You've got to do it. There's no pill. There's nothing that's going to get you there. So, sorry to be a downer at the end, but that's how it is. If you guys have any other questions, hit us up, questions@chalmerswellness.com, and we'll get you guys going. Thanks for your time.